Welcome back everyone. In our last video, we've discussed theoretical aspects of port security, laying the groundwork for understanding how to protect network systems from potential threats targeting open ports. Here's a quick overview of what we've covered. We went over how ports operate at the transport layer of the OSI model, acting as endpoints for specific applications and services. They enable seamless communication by directing data traffic to the appropriate destination. We've also covered the importance of port filtering and access control lists in regulating traffic. Lastly, we've highlighted the risks posed by unsecured open ports, such as unauthorized access and cyber attacks, emphasizing the need of proactive measures like regular port scans and firewall configurations. Now that we understand the theory, in today's video we will focus on practical hands-on demonstrations to identify, analyze, and find vulnerabilities in ports we discovered. Let's get started. Tools required for this lesson are VMware Workstation Pro, which you can download for free now, Kali Linux installed, port scanners such as Nmap, Rascan, or Nabu. Nmap already comes pre-installed with Kali Linux, so you don't have to worry about installing it. And finally, a vulnerable virtual machine. In this demo, we will be using Metasploitable 2. One of the challenges you may face when learning pen testing is finding practice targets that are both easy to set up and intentionally vulnerable for testing. A great starting point for beginners is Metasploitable Virtual Machine. It's a purposefully vulnerable environment designed to help you practice pen testing techniques safely and legally. You can download Metasploitable 2 from the official Rapid7 product page. You can find the link in the description or check out the screenshot in the next part of the video. While this version is older, it remains an excellent resource for understanding core principles and exploring various vulnerabilities, especially when it comes to open ports and misconfigurations. Once you feel comfortable with Metasploitable 2, I highly recommend transitioning to Metasploitable 3, which offers more modern vulnerabilities and scenarios to explore. Now let's go over the steps to set up Metasploitable 2. First of all, visit the Rapid7 product page and download the virtual machine file. Once that is done, unzip the downloaded archive. Within it, you should see a number of VMware files. Open VMware and import the downloaded Metasploitable 2 VM file. Once you do that, ensure that Metasploitable VM is set to host-only network mode to isolate it from your main network while maintaining communication with the host machine. In case your Kali VM is currently using NAT network adapter, I would recommend going to your VM settings and also adding host-only adapter. That way it can communicate with Metasploitable. Once that is done, start your Metasploitable VM and log in using the default credentials, which should be msfadmin, and the password is msfadmin as well. And lastly, check the IP address of the VM using ifconfig. Ping the Metasploitable VM from your Kali Linux to ensure that there is connection. Once that is done, we are ready to begin the lab. Now that we have our Metasploitable 2 virtual machine set up in our lab, it's time to move on to port scanning with Nmap. Nmap is one of the most widely used tools in ethical hacking. In this section, we'll conduct a series of scans to explore and understand open ports on our target. This is a fundamental skill for ethical hackers as it helps identify entry points and services running on a system. We'll start with a basic port scan to get an overview of the open ports. Open your terminal and run the following command. Here, replace the IP with the IP address of your Metasploitable 2 machine, which you should have identified earlier using the ifconfig command. This initial scan will list commonly open ports and their states. These results give you a high-level understanding of the accessible services on the machine. As you can see, we have quite a few ports open here. We have FTP, SSH, Telnet, SMTP, DNS services. We have a web server running on port 80, RPC bind, NetBIOS, an SMB port as well, and a few other. Now that we've conducted the initial scan and you see some of the results, let's expand our scan to cover all of the 65,535 possible ports. By default, Nmap scans only the most common 1,000 ports, but with the command nmap-p- with the IP address, we instruct to scan every single port of the target. This is particularly useful for finding less obvious or uncommon services that may not have appeared in the default scan. While the process might take a bit longer, it often reveals hidden gems that could be critical for further analysis. This scan yielded a lot more results. We have quite a few more ports than from the previous scan. Now that we've identified open ports, we need to determine what services are running on them and their versions. Well, first of all, let's scan only the specific ports that we've identified. To do this, I'm going to use a little bash trick. I'm going to use echo, and then I'm gonna pipe this into cut command, and I'm gonna cut with delimiter / and I'm going to use first item, which should just select all of the ports. Let's try that out. As you can see, it just selected all of the ports. Let me rerun this command and just add another item. I will use translate command to translate n, which stands for new line, into a comma instead. And now I have all of my ports listed on one line and separated by commas. Let's use Nmap with SV flag and ports flag. Let's copy and paste all of our ports that we've selected. And finally, let's grab our target IP. And that should scan just the ports that we've specified. This scan probes the open ports to gather information about the services that are running on each single port, such as the type of the web server on port 80 or the version of the SSH service on port 22. This information is invaluable when trying to determine the potential vulnerabilities of a service or application. After running these scans, let's review the results together. Open ports represent services or application listening for incoming connections. For instance, port 22 typically indicates an SSH server, which might allow secure remote access, while port 80 or 443 suggests a web service running HTTP or HTTPS. Similarly, port 21 often points to an FTP server, which can be used for file transfer, and by correlating the port numbers with their associated services, we can start to form a clearer picture of the target system functionality. When the scan is taking a while, you can simply press a key, and it should tell you how far along it is. So in this case, it's 96.67%, so should be almost done. Nmap service and version detection feature is especially helpful for identifying more obscure services or verifying that a well-known service is running an unexpected version. For example, if a version number reveals that the service is outdated, it could signal a vulnerability worth investigating further. The information gathered here will serve as a foundation for identifying potential weaknesses and planning the next steps in your ethical hacking workflow. Now that the port is finished, notice how much more information we've got in the version column. Here we know the exact version and the name of the FTP server. We know the version of our SSH server as well. Then we know the version of our web server. In this case, it's Apache. And then we know the approximate version of Samba or SMB. We also have here another FTP server running on port 2121. And then we have a MySQL database 5.051 running on port 3306. We also have PostgreSQL database. And now that we've identified open ports and their corresponding services on our Metasploitable 2 machine, it's time to take a closer look at potential vulnerabilities. This step mirrors what ethical hackers may do when they move from reconnaissance to the vulnerability analysis phase. Let's simulate a scenario where we discover an open FTP service on port 21. This service, which allows file transfer between systems, is common but often misconfigured or outdated, making it a frequent target for attackers. To analyze its vulnerabilities, we'll use Searchsploit, a tool that provides access to an extensive database of known exploits. As we've seen, the FTP server here is VSFTPD version 2.3.4. So let's use Searchsploit to see if we can find any vulnerabilities. And SearchSploit suggests that there is an exploit with the backdoor command execution available for this version. As you can see, this is a publicly available exploit, and it's even included in Kali Linux. We even have a path for it right here. Vulnerabilities like this often arise due to outdated software, poor configuration, or the lack of security patches. Open or misconfigured ports can act as entry points for attackers, allowing them to exploit weak services. For example, in this case, an outdated FTP server might lack encryption, making it susceptible to interception or brute force attack. If an exploit exists, which it does in this case, attackers could potentially take over the system entirely. As an ethical hacker, your goal isn't to exploit these vulnerabilities maliciously, but to assess their presence and recommend mitigation strategies. For example, ensuring that services like FTP are updated to their latest version, using strong authentication mechanisms, or replacing insecure protocols with secure alternatives such as SFTP. Well, let's quickly look for this exploit file, and here it is. I don't really want to get into exploits yet, however, let me just demonstrate this for you quick anyways. Hopefully this is Python 3 and not Python 2. It might be Python 2 actually, we'll see after running this. Looks like it can still use Python 3. As you can see, it's pretty simple. The syntax of this exploit, you just need to select host. Let's get the IP address. Oh, actually, it seemed like H was for help, and we literally just need to type in the IP address. As you've seen, the Python 3 was not working, and instead it worked with Python 2. Sometimes you gotta play around with it. I've already used this exploit in the past, so I did not need to look over the script and what it does. However, before using any exploits, always look over the script. And as you can see, after running the exploit, we have gained root access to our Metasploitable 2 victim machine. This is it for today's lesson. I hope you learned a little bit about ports and port scanning. I did mention a few other tools in the last video, so perhaps let's quickly go over them as well. There is Nabu, which is also a port scanner. It works similarly to Nmap, although I don't remember the syntax clearly. As you can see, it's also pretty quick. Another port scanner is Rust Scan, which I don't think I have installed. I'm not going to install it now, however, remember those two options. What I really like about Nabu and Rust-Scan is that you can make executables out of them, and whenever, let's say, you are on a Windows system and you need to run a scan and you don't have access to Nmap executable or an environment with Nmap, you can always resort to those two tools to be executed on Windows. Anyways, see you in the next lesson. In the next chapter, we will start going over the basic scripting. Hope to see you there. If you like the video, please like, share, and subscribe. See you next time.